The conference room felt like it was closing in on her, and Keira Walsh gripped the edge of the polished mahogany table so hard her knuckles turned white. She had spent 3 months preparing this pitch, 3 months of sleepless nights and endless cups of coffee, 3 months of believing she could actually pull this off. But now, staring at the expectant faces of the board members, their designer suits and calculating eyes all focused on her, the words died in her throat. "Miss Walsh," the chairman's voice cut through the silence, "are you ready to present your proposal for the waterfront development?" Keira opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her vision blurred with unshed tears, and she felt her chest constricting. She was an urban planner, for God's sake. She had designed community spaces that brought neighborhoods together, created green areas where children played and families gathered. But this project was different. This was $30 million, hundreds of jobs, and the future of an entire district riding on her shoulders. "I can't do this," she said, the words barely a whisper. Then louder, as tears finally spilled down her cheeks, "I can't do this." She grabbed her portfolio and rushed from the room, ignoring the shocked murmurs behind her. The hallway stretched endlessly before her, and she half ran toward the elevator, desperate to escape the humiliation. Her heels clicked frantically against the marble floor. "Miss Walsh, wait." The voice was deep, commanding, but not unkind. Keira didn't stop. She couldn't face whoever it was, couldn't handle more judgment or disappointment. The elevator doors were opening when a hand pressed against them, stopping them from closing. "Please," the man said, "just give me a moment." Keira finally looked up, wiping at her tears with the back of her hand. The man standing before her was tall, probably in his early 30s, with dark hair and striking blue eyes. He wore a navy suit that was clearly custom-made, and there was an intensity about him that made her breath catch. "I'm sorry," she managed. "I wasted everyone's time. I just need to go." "Then let me do it for both of us," he said simply. Keira blinked. "What? Your project? I saw the preliminary designs you submitted. They're brilliant, revolutionary even, but you froze in there." He gestured back toward the conference room. "It happens. So let me present it with you. We'll do it together." "I don't even know who you are," Keira said, confusion cutting through her panic. He extended his hand. "Trevor Owens. I'm the primary investor in this development." Her eyes widened. Trevor Owens. She should have recognized him, but she had been so focused on her presentation that she hadn't bothered to look up who was funding the project. Trevor Owens was a billionaire, one of the youngest self-made ones in the country. He had made his fortune in sustainable construction and green architecture, and his company had transformed skylines across 3 continents. "I can't ask you to do that," Keira said, but her voice wavered. "You're not asking. I'm offering." Trevor's expression softened. "I've been in that room before, Miss Walsh. Years ago when I was trying to get my first project off the ground. I had a panic attack right in the middle of my pitch. Nearly lost everything." "What happened?" My mentor stepped in, finished the presentation for me. "Afterward, he told me that strength isn't about doing everything alone. It's about knowing when to accept help." Trevor pressed the elevator button again, but this time to go up. "So what do you say? Give it another shot. I promise I won't let you fall." Something in his eyes made her want to trust him. Maybe it was desperation, or maybe it was the genuine warmth in his voice, but Keira found herself nodding. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." They rode the elevator back up in silence. Keira tried to compose herself, dabbing at her mascara-stained cheeks with a tissue Trevor handed her. Her hands were still shaking, but having him beside her somehow made the fear less overwhelming. When they entered the conference room, the board members looked up in surprise. The chairman frowned. "Mr. Owens, we thought Miss Walsh is ready to present now," Trevor said smoothly, pulling out a chair for her. And I'll be co-presenting with her. I hope that's acceptable." The way he said it made clear it wasn't really a question. Trevor Owens was the one writing the checks, after all. The board members exchanged glances but nodded. Keira took a deep breath and opened her portfolio. Her designs spilled across the table: sketches, renderings, environmental impact studies. Trevor moved to stand beside her, and she felt the warmth of his presence like an anchor. "The waterfront district has been neglected for 20 years, Keira began, her voice steadier now, "but it has the potential to become the heart of our city again." Trevor picked up one of her renderings. "What Miss Walsh has designed isn't just another commercial development. It's a living, breathing community space that prioritizes people over profit." They fell into a rhythm, Keira explaining her vision, while Trevor highlighted the financial viability and environmental benefits. He seemed to instinctively know when she needed support, stepping in smoothly whenever her voice wavered. Together, they painted a picture of a waterfront transformed open-air markets, sustainable housing, parks with native plants, and public art installations that celebrated local culture. By the time they finished, the board members were leaning forward in their seats, engaged and asking questions. Trevor fielded the financial ones while Keira handled the design and community impact inquiries. When the chairman finally called for a vote, it was unanimous approval. Keira barely remembered leaving the conference room. Her head was spinning, a mixture of relief and disbelief flooding through her. They made it to the elevator before she finally let out a breathless laugh. "We did it," she said, turning to Trevor. "I can't believe we actually did it." His smile was genuine, reaching his eyes. "You did it, Miss Walsh. I just helped you get out of your own way." "Keira," she said. "Please call me Keira." "Keira." The way he said her name sent an unexpected flutter through her chest. "How about we celebrate? There's a cafe down the street that makes the best coffee in the city." She should have said no, should have maintained professional boundaries, but something about Trevor made her want to say yes. "I'd like that." The cafe was small and cozy, with exposed brick walls and mismatched furniture that gave it character. Trevor ordered them both cappuccinos and insisted on paying, despite Keira's protests. They found a quiet corner table by the window, afternoon sunlight streaming through the glass. "Thank you," Keira said after they sat down, "for what you did back there. You saved my entire career." Trevor shook his head. "Your work saved your career. I just helped you show it off." He took a sip of his coffee. "What made you freeze up? You clearly know your stuff." Keira wrapped her hands around her cup, grateful for the warmth. "My father was an urban planner too. He taught me everything about design, about creating spaces that matter. But he died 2 years ago, and this is the first major project I've taken on since then. I kept thinking about how he would have presented it, how confident and passionate he always was, and I just couldn't live up to that." "I'm sorry about your father," Trevor said quietly. "But Keira, you don't have to live up to anyone's legacy but your own. What you created in there wasn't your father's vision. It was yours, and it was extraordinary." She met his eyes, and the sincerity in them made her heart ache in a way that had nothing to do with grief. "How did you end up doing this?" she asked, changing the subject before she got too emotional again. "Building things, I mean, creating all these projects around the world." Trevor leaned back in his chair, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "I grew up in a neighborhood that was forgotten. No green spaces, no community centers, just concrete and chain-link fences. I used to watch other kids playing in parks on TV and wonder why we didn't have anything like that." He smiled slightly. "So I decided to build them. Started with one playground, funded by every dollar I could scrape together. Then another. Eventually, I built an entire community center and people started paying attention." "That's incredible," Keira said softly. It's necessary, Trevor corrected. Everyone deserves beautiful spaces. That's why your waterfront project matters so much. You're not just designing buildings, Keira. You're designing hope. They talked for hours, coffee turning cold as they shared stories about their work, their dreams, their frustrations with city planning departments and construction delays. Keira found herself laughing more than she had in months, and Trevor's eyes never left her face, as if he was genuinely interested in every word she said. When they finally left the cafe, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Trevor walked her to her car, hands in his pockets, looking almost reluctant to say goodbye. We should meet again, he said. To discuss the project, of course. There will be a lot of coordination needed over the next few months. Keira smiled, knowing that was only partly true. Of course. Project coordination. How about dinner? Tomorrow night, Trevor asked. We can go over the timeline and implementation phases. With actual food this time, Keira teased. Not just coffee, I promise actual food, maybe even wine if you're feeling adventurous. She shouldn't have felt this giddy about a business dinner, but she did. Text me the details. You have my number from the project files, right? Trevor grinned. I might have already saved it. Keira drove home with a smile on her face, the day's earlier panic feeling like a distant memory. When she got to her apartment, she immediately called her best friend Maya. You will not believe what happened today, Keira said as soon as Maya answered. Did you nail the presentation? I had a complete breakdown in front of the board, ran out of the room crying, and then the Billionaire funding the project offered to present with me. There was a pause. I'm going to need you to start from the beginning and include every single detail. Keira told her everything, from the panic attack to Trevor's intervention to their coffee date that definitely felt like more than just colleagues talking shop. Maya listened without interrupting, which was unusual for her. Keira, Maya said when she finished, this man sounds too good to be true. Billionaire, gorgeous, saves your career and wants to have dinner with you. I know, Keira admitted. But Maya, it felt real. He told me about his own panic attack, about growing up poor and building his way up. He wasn't trying to impress me or show off. He was just genuine. Well, be careful, Maya warned, but also have fun. God knows you deserve something good after the year you've had. That night, Keira barely slept. She kept replaying the day's events, remembering the way Trevor had looked at her, the steadiness of his voice when she was falling apart, the warmth in his eyes when he smiled. She told herself to be practical, that he was a billionaire investor, and she was just a planner, that this was professional and nothing more, but her heart wasn't listening to logic. The next day crawled by. Keira tried to focus on work, on sketching out implementation phases for the waterfront project, but her mind kept wandering. When her phone finally buzzed with a text from an unknown number, her pulse quickened. Dinner at 7. There's an Italian place on 5th Street that I think you'll love. Trevor, she typed back quickly. Sounds perfect. See you then. Maya had insisted on helping her get ready, showing up at Keira's apartment at 5 with a garment bag and makeup kit. This is not a business dinner outfit situation, she declared, pulling out a deep green dress that Keira had forgotten she owned. This is I'm a brilliant urban planner who happens to be stunning outfit situation. It's really just dinner, Keira protested weakly. Honey, when a billionaire who looks like he stepped out of a magazine asks you to dinner after saving your career, it is never just dinner. Maya pointed at the bathroom. Now shower. We have 2 hours to make you unforgettable. By the time Trevor picked her up at 6:45, Keira felt both confident and terrified. The dress fit perfectly. Her dark hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and Maya had done her makeup just right, natural but polished. Trevor's reaction when she opened the door made every minute of preparation worth it. His eyes widened slightly, and he seemed to forget what he was about to say. "Wow," he finally managed. "Keira, you look—" "Thank you," she said, smiling. "You clean up pretty well yourself." He was wearing dark slacks and a white button-down with the sleeves rolled up to his forearms, somehow managing to look both professional and relaxed. There was a confidence about him, but not arrogance, just the ease of someone comfortable in their own skin. The restaurant was intimate and softly lit, with candles on every table and Italian opera playing quietly in the background. The host greeted Trevor by name and led them to a corner booth that offered privacy without feeling isolated. "You come here often?" Keira asked as they settled in. "First time, actually," Trevor admitted, "but my assistant recommended it, said it was romantic," he caught himself. "I mean nice. She said it was nice." Keira bit back a smile. "Romantic works too." Their eyes met across the table, and Keira felt that flutter in her chest again. This was dangerous territory. She had sworn off relationships after her last boyfriend left because he couldn't handle her grief over her father. She had decided to focus on her career, on building something that mattered. But Trevor was making her reconsider that plan. They ordered wine and pasta, and the conversation flowed as easily as it had at the cafe. Trevor asked about her design philosophy, about how she decided what a community needed. Keira found herself explaining her process, how she would spend weeks just observing a neighborhood, talking to residents, understanding the rhythm of daily life before she ever put pencil to paper. "That's why your waterfront design is so perfect," Trevor said. "You actually understand the people who will use it. Most planners just see empty space and think about what they can fill it with. You see the life that's already there and find ways to enhance it." "That's what my father taught me," Keira said softly. "He used to say that buildings are just containers. The real architecture is in the relationships they foster." Trevor reached across the table, his hand covering hers. The gesture was gentle, questioning. "He sounds like he was an amazing man." Keira didn't pull away. His hand was warm, solid, real. "He was. I wish you could have met him. I think he would have liked you. Because I'm charming and devastatingly handsome." Trevor teased, she laughed. "Because you actually care about the work, not just the profit." His expression grew serious. "The profit doesn't mean much if you're not building something worthwhile. I learned that early on. I could have made billions in commercial real estate, putting up soulless office buildings and luxury condos. But what's the point? I want to leave the world better than I found it. And have you?" Keira asked. "Do you feel like you're making a difference?" Trevor considered the question. "Some days yes, some days no. There are always setbacks, projects that fall through, communities that resist change even when it's for the better. But then I see kids playing in a park I built, or families moving into affordable housing that didn't exist before, and it feels worth it." They talked through dinner and dessert, the restaurant slowly emptying around them until they were nearly the last customers. The owner came by personally to let them know they could stay as long as they liked, giving Trevor a knowing smile that made Keira wonder how many romantic dinners had ended here. "I should get you home," Trevor said reluctantly when they finally left. "Even though I'm not ready for this night to end." "Me neither," Keira admitted. He drove her back to her apartment, and they sat in his car for another 20 minutes, talking about everything and nothing. When he finally walked her to her door, Keira's heart was racing. "Thank you for tonight," she said. "It was perfect." Trevor stepped closer, and Keira held her breath. He was going to kiss her. She could see it in his eyes, in the way he was looking at her mouth. But instead, he just brushed a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering on her cheek. "Can I see you again?" he asked. And not just for project meetings, actually see you. Yes, Keira said without hesitation. I'd like that. Tomorrow, he smiled. Too eager, tomorrow's perfect. He did kiss her then, but just softly on the forehead, a gesture that was somehow more intimate than anything else. Keira watched him walk back to his car, and she didn't go inside until his taillights disappeared around the corner. The next few weeks were a blur of project meetings and stolen moments. Trevor and Keira worked closely on the waterfront development, coordinating with contractors and city officials, navigating bureaucratic red tape and community concerns. But they also found time for long dinners, weekend walks through the park, late-night phone calls that stretched until dawn. Keira found herself falling for him in a way that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Trevor was unlike anyone she had ever dated. He was driven and ambitious, but also thoughtful and present. He remembered small details about her life, surprised her with her favorite coffee order, asked about her mother and whether she was doing okay since her father's death, and he supported her work without trying to take over. When Keira had to present design revisions to the board, Trevor sat in the audience but let her handle it alone. When she doubted herself, he reminded her of her talent but never made decisions for her. He was a partner in the truest sense. One evening, about a month after their first dinner, Trevor took Keira to the waterfront site. It was after dark, the area deserted except for security guards who nodded at Trevor as they passed. "Why are we here?" Keira asked, though she trusted him enough not to worry. "I wanted to show you something," Trevor said, leading her to the center of where the main plaza would be. Construction hadn't started yet, but stakes marked out the boundaries of her design. "Close your eyes. Trevor, trust me." She closed her eyes, and she heard him moving around, the sound of something clicking. Then lights blazed to life, and when she opened her eyes, she gasped. String lights had been hung on temporary poles, creating a canopy of warm, golden light over the entire plaza area. In the center was a blanket with pillows, a picnic basket, and a bottle of wine. "How did you?" Keira trailed off, overwhelmed. "I wanted you to see it," Trevor said softly. "Not the empty lot, not the construction plans. I wanted you to see what it's going to become. A place where people fall in love and make memories and feel like they belong." Tears pricked at Keira's eyes, but this time they were happy tears. "It's beautiful." They sat on the blanket, Trevor pouring wine while Keira unpacked the picnic basket. There was cheese and fruit, fresh bread and chocolate-covered strawberries. The night air was cool but comfortable, and above them, stars were just starting to appear. "I have to confess something," Trevor said after a while. "That first day when you ran out of the conference room, I didn't follow you just because of the project." Keira's heart skipped. "No," he shook his head. "I'd seen your portfolio weeks before, your designs, your philosophy, the way you think about communities. I was impressed professionally, sure. But then you walked into that conference room and he paused as if choosing his words carefully. "You took my breath away." "Trevor, let me finish," he said gently. "When you ran out, I saw my chance. I knew I shouldn't mix business with personal feelings, knew it could complicate everything. But I couldn't let you go without at least trying. So I offered to help with the presentation, telling myself it was just about the project. But Keira, I was lying to myself. I wanted to know you. I wanted to be near you." Keira set down her wine glass with a shaky hand. "I'm glad you followed me," she said. "Because I've been falling for you since that moment in the elevator when you said you'd do it for both of us. No one has ever offered to carry my weight like that. To be strong when I couldn't be." "You're stronger than you know," Trevor said, moving closer. "You just needed someone to remind you." This time when he kissed her, it wasn't gentle or tentative. It was passionate and real, full of all the feelings they had been building toward for weeks. Keira's hands found their way to his hair, and his arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her close. The world fell away until there was only this moment, this man, this feeling of rightness that she had never experienced before. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Trevor rested his forehead against hers. "I'm in love with you," he whispered. "I know it's fast, I know we should probably wait to say these things, but I can't help it. I love you, Keira." "I love you too," she said, the words feeling both terrifying and inevitable. "God help me, I love you too." They stayed at the waterfront until past midnight, talking and kissing and planning a future that seemed suddenly possible. Keira had thought her career was the only thing that mattered, that she didn't have room in her life for love. But Trevor had shown her that she could have both, that the right person didn't take away from her dreams but added to them. As their relationship deepened, Keira met more of Trevor's world. He took her to charity galas and business dinners, introduced her to other investors and developers. Some people were surprised by her, by the fact that she was a planner rather than a socialite or model. But Trevor made it clear that Keira was his equal, his partner, and anyone who didn't respect that wasn't worth their time. Keira introduced Trevor to her mother, a meeting she had been nervous about. But her mother took one look at how Trevor treated her daughter and gave her approval immediately. "Your father would have liked him," her mother said later, when Trevor was out of earshot. "He's genuine. That's rare, especially in his world." The waterfront project broke ground in early fall, a ceremony attended by the mayor and local press. Keira stood beside Trevor as they turned the first shovels of dirt, cameras flashing around them. The questions from reporters were mostly about the development, but a few asked about their relationship. "Miss Walsh is the brilliant mind behind this project," Trevor said smoothly. "I'm just lucky enough to help bring her vision to life." "And are you too involved personally?" one reporter pressed. Keira and Trevor exchanged a glance. They had kept their relationship relatively private, not wanting to overshadow the work. But standing there with him, with their shared dream literally breaking ground beneath their feet, Keira didn't want to hide anymore. "Yes," she said clearly. "Trevor and I are together." The reporter's eyes lit up, ready to make this a story about a billionaire's love life rather than an important community project. But Trevor shut it down quickly. "The focus today should be on what this development means for the city," he said firmly. "Miss Walsh's designs are going to transform this waterfront into a space that serves everyone. That's the story that matters." Later, when they were alone in Trevor's car, he reached for her hand. "Sorry if I was too forceful back there. I just didn't want them turning this into some tabloid drama." "You were perfect," Keira assured him. "And you're right, the project should be the focus." But privately, she was glad the truth was out. She was tired of being careful, of downplaying what they had together. Trevor was the best thing that had happened to her in years, and she wanted the world to know it. The construction progressed through fall and into winter. Keira was on site almost daily, working with contractors and making adjustments as needed. Trevor was often beside her, though he had other projects demanding his attention across the country. They made it work, stealing time together whenever possible, learning to navigate the challenges of two demanding careers. There were hard days. Days when construction delays threatened the timeline, when budget concerns arose, when community members protested certain aspects of the design. Keira and Trevor learned to lean on each other during these times, to be each other's strength when things got difficult. One particularly rough day in December, when a major contractor pulled out of the project citing scheduling conflicts, Keira sat in her office fighting back tears of frustration. Trevor found her there, head in her hands, looking defeated. "Hey," he said softly, closing the door behind him. "Talk to me." We're going to have to push back the timeline by at least 3 months, Keira said. And that's if we can even find another contractor who can handle this scale. All because Mitchell Construction decided a casino project in Atlantic City was more lucrative. Trevor pulled up a chair beside her. Then we'll find another contractor, a better one who's actually committed to this community. It's not that simple, Keira said, exhaustion heavy in her voice. Every delay costs money, loses momentum. People are already skeptical about this project. This just gives them more ammunition. People were skeptical about me too, Trevor said. When I was 25 and trying to build my first community center, everyone said I was too young, too inexperienced, too idealistic. But I proved them wrong. Just like you're going to prove the skeptics wrong about this. Keira looked at him, drawing strength from his unwavering confidence. How do you stay so positive? Don't you ever just want to give up all the time? Trevor admitted. But then I remember why I started. I remember the kid I was, growing up without decent spaces to play or learn. I remember that every project I complete means someone else won't have to grow up the way I did. He took her hand. And now I have another reason not to give up. You, us, this thing we're building together. She leaned into him, letting his solid presence calm her racing thoughts. I don't know what I'd do without you. Good thing you'll never have to find out, he said, kissing the top of her head. They found a new contractor within a week, a firm that specialized in sustainable community development and was actually more aligned with Keira's vision than Mitchell Construction had been. The project got back on track, and Keira learned an important lesson about setbacks being redirections rather than failures. As winter gave way to spring, the waterfront began to take shape. The foundation for the main plaza was poured, the park areas were graded and prepared for planting, and the framework for the community center started rising against the sky. Keira visited the site daily, marveling at how her drawings were becoming reality. Trevor surprised her one April morning by showing up at her apartment with coffee and pastries. "Play hooky with me today," he said. "I have 3 meetings scheduled," Keira protested, but she was already smiling. "Reschedule them. I want to show you something." She couldn't resist him. Keira made her calls, rescheduling everything, and then let Trevor drive her out of the city. They headed north into wine country, the landscape growing more rural and beautiful as they left the urban sprawl behind. "Where are we going?" Keira asked. "You'll see." They drove for over an hour before Trevor turned down a long, tree-lined driveway. At the end was a stunning stone house, modern but warm, with huge windows overlooking rolling hills and vineyards. Keira's breath caught. "Trevor, what is this?" He parked and turned to her, suddenly looking nervous. "I bought it last month. I wanted to show you because—" He paused, running a hand through his hair. "Because I want you to think of it as ours, not just mine." Keira's heart started racing. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I want a future with you. Not just working together on projects, but actually building a life. I want morning coffee on that porch. I want to cook dinner in that kitchen. I want to fall asleep next to you in that bedroom upstairs with the view of the stars." He took both her hands. "I know it's only been 6 months and maybe this is too fast, but Keira, I've never been more sure of anything. Move in with me, make this place a home with me." Tears were streaming down Keira's face, but she was smiling. "Yes," she said. "God, yes." Trevor pulled her into his arms, holding her tight. They sat in the car for a long moment, just holding each other, before going inside to explore what would become their home. The house was perfect. Bright and open, with space for both of them to work. A yard for the future, and that view that made everything else fade away. Trevor had already furnished it with comfortable, lived-in pieces that felt welcoming rather than sterile. "I want you to change anything you don't like," he said as they walked through. This needs to feel like your space too. It's perfect, Keira said honestly. You have good taste. I had help, he admitted. Your friend Maya might have given me some advice. Keira laughed. You asked Maya for help. I wanted to get it right. She told me you like natural light and cozy spaces, that you're not into modern minimalism or anything too cold. He showed her a room on the second floor with north-facing windows. I thought this could be your design studio. The room was already set up with a drafting table, shelves for materials, and a comfortable chair by the window. Keira walked around it slowly, taking everything in. No one had ever done something like this for her, created a space specifically designed for her needs and dreams. When did you have time to do all this? She asked. I made time, Trevor said simply. You're worth making time for. They spent the day at the house, planning and dreaming. They would keep Keira's apartment in the city for nights when she was working late on projects, but this would be their real home. Their sanctuary from the chaos of work and life. That night, they christened their bedroom properly, making love as the stars appeared outside their window. Keira had never felt safer or more cherished than she did in Trevor's arms, listening to his heartbeat, feeling his hands in her hair. I love you, she whispered into the darkness. I love you more, he murmured back. Not possible. She felt his smile against her forehead. Want to bet? Moving in together brought new rhythms to their relationship. They learned each other's morning routines, discovered that Trevor was an early riser who liked to go for runs, while Keira preferred to ease into the day with coffee and sketching. They took turns cooking dinner, though Trevor was admittedly better at it, and they spent evenings on the porch talking about their days. The waterfront project continued to progress beautifully. By summer, the structures were mostly complete, and planting had begun in the park areas. Keira worked with local artists to commission murals and sculptures, wanting to ensure the space reflected the community's culture and history. Trevor expanded his business, taking on more projects in sustainable development. He consulted on Keira's designs, but he was careful to let her maintain creative control. They had found a professional balance that worked, where they supported each other without stepping on toes. In August, Trevor's mother came to visit. Keira was nervous about meeting her, knowing how important family was to Trevor. But Margaret Owens turned out to be warm and welcoming, a woman who had raised her son alone after his father left and was fiercely proud of what he had accomplished. He talks about you constantly, Margaret told Keira over lunch. I was starting to think you were too good to be true. I'm definitely real, Keira assured her, complete with flaws and bad days. Margaret laughed. Good. Trevor needs someone who's real, not some perfect image. He's had enough of people trying to impress him because of his money. She studied Keira with sharp eyes. You love him for him, not what he can buy you. I can see that. I do, Keira said simply. He makes me want to be better, to dream bigger. I've never had that before. Then you're good for each other, Margaret said. That's all a mother can hope for. The waterfront project opened to the public in late September, exactly 1 year after Keira's panic attack in that conference room. The opening ceremony was huge, with the mayor cutting the ribbon while news cameras rolled and hundreds of community members cheered. Keira stood back, watching children run through the playground she had designed, seeing families spread blankets on the grass for picnics, noticing elderly couples sitting on benches under the shade trees. This was what she had envisioned, what she had fought for, and it was real. Trevor found her standing alone by the new fountain, tears streaming down her face. Happy tears, he asked softly. So happy, she said. Trevor, look at it. It's everything I dreamed. It's everything you made, he corrected. You did this, Keira. You created something beautiful and lasting. She turned to him, this man who had believed in her when she couldn't believe in herself, who had stood beside her through every challenge and setback, who had loved her unconditionally. "We did this together," she said. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Then I guess we make a pretty good team, the best team." That evening, after the crowds had dispersed and the cleanup crews were finishing up, Trevor led Keira back to the central plaza. The string lights they had hung for their first picnic had been incorporated into the permanent design, and they glowed softly in the twilight. "I have one more surprise," Trevor said. "Trevor, you've already given me so much. Just hear me out." He took her hand, and Keira realized he was nervous. "Remember that night I brought you here when it was just an empty lot? I knew then that I wanted to spend my life with you, but I didn't want to rush you, didn't want to pressure you into anything you weren't ready for." Her heart started pounding. "Trevor." He dropped to one knee, pulling a small box from his pocket. "Keira Walsh, you're the most talented, passionate, beautiful person I've ever known. You make me want to build a better world, not just for others, but for us, for our future." He opened the box, revealing a stunning ring with a diamond surrounded by emeralds. "Will you marry me?" Keira was crying again, but she was also laughing, overwhelmed with joy. "Yes," she said, pulling him to his feet. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." He slipped the ring on her finger, and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. Everything with Trevor felt like it was meant to be, like all the pain and struggle of her past had been leading her to this moment, this man, this life. They kissed in the plaza they had built together, surrounded by the realization of their shared dreams, and Keira knew without a doubt that this was only the beginning. The wedding was planned for the following spring, giving them time to do it right. Keira's mother cried when she heard the news, telling Keira that her father would have been so proud and so happy for her. Maya immediately appointed herself maid of honor and threw herself into planning with enthusiasm that was both helpful and occasionally overwhelming. Trevor's best man was his mentor, Daniel Chen, the man who had stepped in during Trevor's first panic attack all those years ago. Keira liked Daniel immediately, appreciating how he had shaped Trevor into the man he was. "You're good for him," Daniel told Keira at their engagement party. "He was always driven, always building, but there was something missing. A softness, maybe. You brought that out in him." "He brought out strength in me," Keira said. "I think that's what makes it work. We balance each other." "That's the secret," Daniel agreed. "Finding someone who makes you more yourself, not less." The months leading up to the wedding were busy. Keira took on 2 more projects, both community-focused developments that allowed her to apply the lessons she had learned from the waterfront. Trevor supported her fully, even when it meant less time together. They had learned to trust in their relationship, to know that temporary separations didn't threaten what they had built. They decided to get married at their house in wine country, in the garden that had been professionally landscaped but still felt natural and wild. It would be intimate, just close friends and family, exactly what they both wanted. Keira's mother helped her shop for a wedding dress, and they found the perfect one at a small boutique. It was simple but elegant, with delicate lace sleeves and a flowing skirt that made Keira feel like herself, rather than someone playing dress-up. The night before the wedding, following tradition, Trevor stayed at a hotel while Keira remained at the house with Maya and her mother. They drank wine and looked at old photos, laughing and crying as they remembered Keira's father and all the moments that had led to this one. "Are you nervous?" Maya asked as they got ready for bed. "Not even a little," Keira said honestly. "I've never been more sure of anything." The wedding day dawned clear and perfect, the sky a brilliant blue without a single cloud. Keira woke early, watching the sunrise from the bedroom she would soon share as a wife rather than just a girlfriend. She thought about the past year and a half, about how much had changed since that day in the conference room when she had thought her world was ending. If she hadn't run out, if Trevor hadn't followed her, if she hadn't accepted his help, none of this would be happening. Sometimes the worst moments led to the best outcomes. Sometimes falling apart was necessary before you could be put back together stronger. Getting ready was a blur of makeup and hair, of slipping into her dress and hearing her mother gasp with tears in her eyes. Maya fussed with the veil while Keira's hands remained steady. She wasn't nervous. She was ready. The ceremony was held at sunset, golden light filtering through the trees as guests took their seats. Keira walked down the makeshift aisle on her mother's arm, and when she saw Trevor standing at the altar in his tuxedo, his eyes full of love and promise, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. The officiant spoke about partnership and dreams, about building something together that was stronger than anything either person could create alone. Keira and Trevor had written their own vows, and when it was time, Trevor went first. "Keira, when I met you, I thought I had my life figured out. I knew what I wanted, where I was going, what success looked like. But you showed me that I had only built the framework. You showed me that real success isn't about buildings or money or recognition. It's about waking up next to someone who makes you want to be better. It's about creating spaces where love can grow. It's about finding a partner who carries you when you can't carry yourself." His voice grew thick with emotion. "You are my partner, my best friend, my home, and I promise to spend every day of my life making sure you know how extraordinary you are." Keira was crying, but she smiled through the tears as she began her vows. "Trevor, you met me on the worst day of my professional life. I was broken and scared and convinced I couldn't do what I had set out to do. And instead of judging me or walking away, you said the words that changed everything. Let me do it for both of us. You showed me that accepting help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. That love isn't about being perfect, it's about being real. You've given me the courage to dream bigger, to risk more, to believe in myself even when it's hard." She took his hands. "I promise to be your soft place to land when the world is too much. I promise to celebrate your victories and hold you through your defeats. I promise to build this life with you, brick by brick, dream by dream, until we've created something beautiful." There wasn't a dry eye in the audience as they exchanged rings, and the officiant pronounced them husband and wife. When Trevor kissed her, the guests erupted in applause, but Keira barely heard them. There was only this moment, this man, this perfect beginning. The reception was held in their garden under string lights that reminded Keira of that first picnic at the waterfront. They danced and ate and celebrated with the people they loved most. Trevor's mother told embarrassing stories about his childhood, and Maya gave a speech that had everyone laughing and crying in equal measure. When it was time for their first dance, Trevor led Keira onto the floor as a slow song began. He held her close and they swayed together, not caring about perfect steps or choreography. This was them, this easy intimacy and comfortable silence. "Happy," he murmured against her hair. "Completely," she said. "You, more than I knew was possible." They honeymooned in Italy, spending 2 weeks exploring Venice, Florence, and Rome. They visited architectural marvels and ate ridiculous amounts of pasta. They got lost in winding streets and found hidden trattorias. They made love in their hotel room while church bells rang outside. It was perfect and romantic, and everything a honeymoon should be. But Keira was also glad to come home, to their house and their life and their work. Being married didn't feel different exactly. It just felt more solid, more permanent, like they had signed a contract with the universe promising to choose each other every day. They fell into married life easily. Trevor continued building his empire, taking on projects that mattered and turning down lucrative deals that didn't align with his values. Keira's reputation grew, and she was soon fielding offers from cities across the country wanting her to design community spaces. They talked about starting a joint firm, combining their expertise into something new. After several months of discussion and planning, Walsh Development was born, a company dedicated to creating sustainable, community-focused developments that put people before profit. Their first project together was a renovation of an abandoned factory district in Detroit, transforming it into mixed-use housing and commercial space that served long-time residents rather than displacing them. It was challenging and sometimes frustrating, but working together made everything better. 2 years after their wedding, Keira came home from a doctor's appointment with news that would change everything. She found Trevor in his office, reviewing blueprints for their latest project. "Hey," he said, looking up with a smile. "How'd the appointment go?" "Everything okay," Keira nodded, suddenly nervous. They had talked about wanting children eventually, but eventually had always seemed far off. But life had other plans. "Trevor, I'm pregnant." He stared at her for a long moment, the words not quite registering. Then his face broke into the biggest smile she had ever seen, and he was across the room in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. "Really? You're sure? Really sure? 8 weeks along." Trevor kissed her, then dropped to his knees, pressing his face against her still flat stomach. "Hey in there," he said softly. "I'm your dad, and I already love you more than anything." Keira ran her fingers through his hair, overwhelmed with love for this man who was about to become the father of her child. "We're going to be parents." "We're going to be great parents," Trevor corrected, standing and taking her face in his hands. "Our kid is going to be so loved, so supported, so sure of their place in the world." The pregnancy was easier than Keira had feared. She had morning sickness in the first trimester, but after that, she felt strong and energized. She continued working on projects, though Trevor became almost comically protective, insisting she not lift anything heavier than a pencil and threatening to wrap her in bubble wrap whenever she visited construction sites. They found out they were having a girl, and both cried when they saw her on the ultrasound, this tiny perfect person they had created together. They spent hours debating names, finally settling on Emma Rose, a name that felt both classic and fresh. Keira's mother was overjoyed about becoming a grandmother, and Margaret Owens immediately started knitting baby blankets. Maya threw an elaborate baby shower, and Trevor's business partner Daniel gifted them a hand-carved rocking chair that had been in his family for generations. Emma arrived on a snowy January evening, 3 years to the day after that conference room panic attack. Keira labored for 12 hours, Trevor never leaving her side, coaching her through contractions and telling her how strong she was, how amazing, how perfect. When Emma finally entered the world, tiny and red-faced and screaming, Keira sobbed with relief and joy. Trevor cut the umbilical cord with shaking hands, and when the nurse placed Emma on Keira's chest, the world narrowed to just the 3 of them. "She's perfect," Trevor whispered, touching Emma's tiny hand with one finger. "Keira, look at her. She's absolutely perfect." "We made her," Keira said in wonder. "We made this perfect little person." The first few months with Emma were exhausting and magical in equal measure. Sleepless nights blurred together, and Keira learned to function on far less rest than she thought possible. But watching Trevor with their daughter, seeing how gentle and attentive he was, made everything worthwhile. He would wake for the middle-of-the-night feedings, rocking Emma while singing off-key lullabies. He changed diapers without complaint and could soothe her cries better than anyone. He was the father Keira had known he would be, present and loving and unafraid of the hard parts. They brought Emma to the waterfront on her 3-month birthday, wanting to show her where their love story had really begun. She was too young to understand, of course, but Keira took photos anyway, wanting to remember this moment. "Someday we'll tell her about this place," Trevor said, holding Emma as they stood in the central plaza. "About how her mom designed something extraordinary, and how her dad was smart enough to fall in love with the brilliant woman behind it." "We'll tell her about the day I said I couldn't do it," Keira added, "and how you offered to do it for both of us, and how that moment changed everything." Emma gurgled, blowing bubbles, and they both laughed. Life was messy and complicated and sometimes overwhelming, but it was also beautiful. They had built something together, not just projects and companies, but a family, a life, a love that would last. As Emma grew, so did their company. Walsh Development became known for transformative community projects that actually served communities. They were selective about what they took on, prioritizing impact over profit, and their reputation attracted clients who shared their values. Keira continued designing while Trevor handled the business side, but they collaborated on every project, each bringing their unique perspective. They proved that success and ethics weren't mutually exclusive, that it was possible to do well by doing good. Emma's first birthday party was held at their house in wine country, with both sets of grandparents, Maya and her new boyfriend, Daniel and his wife, and a dozen other friends and family members. Emma smashed her cake with gleeful enthusiasm, getting more on herself than in her mouth, and everyone laughed and took pictures. That night, after the guests had left and Emma was asleep, Keira and Trevor sat on their porch swing, exhausted but happy. "Can you believe it's been 3 years since that conference room?" Keira asked, leaning her head on Trevor's shoulder. "Feels like yesterday and forever ago at the same time," Trevor said. "I remember seeing you walk in, so nervous and determined. I remember thinking I'd never seen anyone more beautiful. I was a mess. You were human. And then you ran out and I thought, this is it. This is my chance to meet her, to help her, maybe to start something." He kissed her temple. "Best decision I ever made following you." "Best breakdown I ever had," Keira joked, but there was truth in it. "Everything good in my life came from that moment. This house, our company, Emma, you." They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars appear one by one. Inside, their daughter slept peacefully, safe and loved. Around them, the vineyard rustled in the evening breeze. And between them, there was a love that had been tested and had grown stronger, a partnership built on mutual respect and genuine affection. Keira thought about her father, wishing he could have met Trevor and Emma, wishing he could have seen how her life had unfolded. But she thought he would be proud. She was creating spaces that mattered, loving fully, living authentically. She was building a legacy just like he had taught her. "What are you thinking about?" Trevor asked. "How lucky I am," Keira said simply. "How everything I thought I lost that day in the conference room I actually found. I found my voice, my confidence, my partner. I found home." Trevor pulled her closer. "We found each other. And we built something beautiful." They stayed on the porch until the stars filled the sky. Two people who had started as a billionaire and a frightened planner and had become so much more. They were partners and lovers, friends and collaborators, parents and dreamers. They were proof that sometimes the scariest moments led to the greatest joys, that accepting help wasn't weakness, and that real love wasn't about grand gestures but about showing up every day and choosing each other. Inside, Emma stirred in her crib, making the soft cooing sounds that meant she was dreaming. Keira and Trevor went to check on her, standing together over the crib and watching their daughter sleep. Her tiny chest rose and fell steadily, her rosebud mouth slightly open, her fingers curled into loose fists. "She has your determination," Trevor whispered. And your kindness, Keira added. They returned to their bedroom, climbing into bed and wrapping around each other the way they always did, fitting together perfectly after years of practice. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new projects, new adventures. But tonight, there was only this peace, this contentment, this profound gratitude for the life they had built together. I love you, Keira murmured, already half asleep. I love you more, Trevor replied, the same playful argument they had been having since the beginning. Not possible, Keira said, smiling against his chest. But as she drifted off to sleep, safe in her husband's arms, with her daughter breathing softly down the hall and years of happiness stretching ahead of them, Keira knew that love wasn't about who loved more. It was about loving fully, completely, without reservation or fear. It was about building something together that neither person could create alone. It was about the moment when you said you couldn't do it, and someone who loved you said, "Then let me do it for both of us." And that moment became the foundation for everything beautiful that followed. Years passed, filled with more projects, more love, more life. Emma grew into a curious, confident child who loved playing in the spaces her parents designed, who would someday understand that she was born from a love story that began with panic and ended with peace. And Keira and Trevor continued building, not just structures and communities, but a life rich with meaning and connection. They grew old together, their love deepening with each passing year, proof that the best partnerships were built on vulnerability and trust, on being willing to say, "I can't do this," and finding someone who responds with perfect love. "Then let me do it for both of us."